Once upon a time.
Who is this? I like the beginning.
In time a prince would come. Once upon a time, but now that time
Brings me back to my childhood.
is gone.
No freaking way! No!
Yo!
Brett Cooper?
No way. Hold on.
Oh man, I got such a crush on Brett Cooper.
Isaac, so we're gonna preface this with Isaac loves Brett Cooper, and now she is engaged, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm so sad. I cried in my bed.
So Brett Cooper, if you're watching this, Isaac cried.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a lot of millions of men that cried.
Yeah.
But Isaac is one of them.
After months of viral rants, political firestorms, and fan petitions, Disney has made a move that's shaking the entertainment industry to its core. The once celebrated casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White has been quietly undone, and former Daily Wire personality Brett Cooper is rumored to be stepping in. But this isn't just about replacing one actress with another. It's about a full image overhaul. Disney, it seems, is hitting the reset button. The stakes are high, with the studio now taking drastic measures to distance itself from the Zegler era. Sources close to the situation suggest that Disney is implementing a soft exit strategy for Zegler, erasing her from promotional material and beginning fresh casting discussions. Industry insiders are buzzing with speculation as Disney tries to clean up what many view as a public relations nightmare. The big question remains, what went wrong with Zegler's casting, and what does Brett Cooper bring to the table? We'll dive into that in just a moment.
The Daily Wire is making a live-action Snow White movie starring conservative YouTuber Brett Cooper. I was not expecting this announcement. At least Brett Cooper looks like Snow White in this promo, whereas you can't really say the same thing about Rachel Zegler. You know, it'd be one thing if Snow White turned around and put a MAGA hat on or some bullshit. That's not, people don't want propaganda on the other side. They just want propaganda-free entertainment.
And that really is the main point. We're just trying to represent the values that Snow White is based in, the timeless values that we all loved growing up, that are sadly being forgotten in this new adaptation. Weird. Somebody said, who's playing Snow White, Ben or Brett? I can't even tell. Never heard that joke before. That's really clever. I saw comments of people asking if the entire movie was just going to be a Ben Shapiro deepfake. Like, come on, guys. Ben and I did a video together. We've killed those rumors. We've moved on.
That's what they want you to think.
Rachel Zegler's casting as Snow White was met with mixed reactions from the moment it was announced. Disney's decision to cast the relatively unknown actress in the iconic role sparked intense debate, especially among fans of the original animated film. But things only escalated when Zegler herself began making controversial remarks about the classic 1937 film. In an interview, she openly criticized the love story between Snow White and the prince, calling it weird and problematic. This critique didn't sit well with Disney fans who cherished the original version. They felt betrayed by an actress hired to bring new life to the princess, yet openly criticizing the very source material she was chosen to represent. But Zegler didn't stop there. She also became a prominent figure in political discourse, making headlines for her outspoken views on social media. Her criticism of various global issues, often interwoven with pointed political commentary, put Disney in a difficult position. As Zegler's comments gained traction, the studio found itself at the center of a growing public relations crisis. Fans were no longer just questioning her casting, they were questioning Disney's judgment in choosing her for such a beloved role. What started as a celebration of diversity quickly turned into a storm of controversy.
I get stopper photos every time I'm online for the Snow White ride, and I have to pretend like, oh God, well, crazy that we're in front of this.
Wait, how often are you in line for the Snow White ride?
I'm a narcissist.
Disney, known for its family-friendly image, began facing mounting pressure as the backlash from conservative audiences grew. Reports from insiders suggest that the studio realized keeping Zegler as Snow White was simply too risky, especially given the increasing calls for boycotts from certain groups. In response, Disney began to quietly distance itself from her. The company's strategy was subtle but clear. They were scrubbing promotional material linked to Zegler from official channels and initiating fresh casting discussions. This wasn't just about recasting the role. It was an image reset. Zegler's name was conspicuously absent from new promotional materials, and the spotlight shifted to new casting options. Fans quickly noticed the shift, with many wondering why Disney had so abruptly moved away from Zegler, whom they had initially marketed as the face of the project. The decision was a major shift for Disney, which had long stood by its actors, even in the face of controversy. But in this case, they appeared to have decided that the risks of continuing with Zegler outweighed the potential rewards. As the backlash continued to build, Disney's soft exit strategy was executed executed flawlessly, yet the fallout left fans and industry experts wondering what would come next for the Snow White project.
Disney is completely done with Rachel Zegler and is ready to fire her after this new controversy. Cast as Snow White, Rachel Zegler seemed set for stardom. However, fans have been criticizing her for disrespecting the classic character. Her criticism of the original Snow White movies and her admission of disliking Snow White as a child has angered the fans. Zegler's recent controversial statement on Disney's Star Wars seems to have added fuel to the fire, complicating her position. The internet is calling her a hypocrite for a comment on Palpatine's return in Star Wars.
She did what?
According to fans, like Palpatine's comeback, which was a wrong Disney decision that destroyed Star Wars' legacy, the colorblind casting of Rachel, as well as regular actors playing dwarf characters, will ruin Snow White 2. With Zegler getting fired from Paddington 3 and voice acting roles, this new controversy hints at a possible industry-wide ban. With the growing discontent, fans think...
Amid the chaos surrounding Zegler's departure, attention quickly turned to Brett Cooper, the former Daily Wire personality and rising star in conservative media. Rumors began circulating that Cooper was being considered as the new Snow White. Cooper, who had previously worked with the Daily Wire on a planned remake of Snow White and the Evil Queen, was no stranger to controversy herself. Her connection to the conservative media giant made her an unlikely candidate for a Disney role, especially one as high profile as Snow White. However, in the midst of Disney's PR crisis, Cooper's name started to pop up as the perfect candidate for the role. The Daily Wire's planned Snow White project, which had been marketed as a return to traditional values, was abruptly halted when Cooper parted ways with the company in late 2023. The project had been positioned as a direct response to Disney's woke version, with Cooper set to play a no-nonsense Snow White. But after Cooper's exit, all promotional efforts were paused, and the project came to an abrupt standstill. Now, with Disney reeling from Zegler's exit, some are speculating that Cooper could be the fresh face the studio needs to restore the iconic princess to her former glory. But what will her casting mean for the future of the Snow White project? Could this be a chance for Cooper to break free from the political media spotlight and reinvent herself as a mainstream star?
I know that there is also another Snow White that I think you guys want me to talk about. I am sorry that that has not been addressed sooner, but I just want to say, from me, unfortunately, the only thing I can really say is that that is not my story to tell. Those are not my updates to give. And in the film industry, when you are an actor, when you sign one of these contracts in the entertainment industry, I think a lot of people on the outside think that, you know, if you are somebody who, you know, has a lot of publicity around you and your name is attached to a project, that means that you have a ton of control or a ton of intel, but usually that is not the case. As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public. You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look. That is our job, and that was my job on this production. So again, that's really all I can say. Which honestly kind of seems like maybe this path that I'm taking right now is the path that Rachel Zegler should have taken instead of just running her mouth for the last 3 years.
Brett Cooper's departure from the Daily Wire was more than just a career move. It was a public split that sent shockwaves through the media landscape. Cooper, who had been a prominent figure at the company, was unexpectedly cut loose, and the reasons behind her departure remain shrouded in mystery. Some sources suggest the split was driven by tension between Cooper and Daily Wire leadership, particularly over creative differences surrounding the direction of the Snow White remake. The Daily Wire, known for its provocative, often politically charged content, had been positioning the Snow White project as a conservative counterpoint to Disney's more progressive take. But Cooper, it seems, was less interested in using the film as a political tool and more interested in making it a timeless classic fairy tale. This creative difference led to a breakdown in their working relationship, culminating in Cooper's sudden exit. The fallout didn't stop there. Cooper's departure from the Daily Wire sparked a social media firestorm. Fans and media personalities alike took to the internet to express their support for Cooper, while others speculated about the true nature of her exit. Some believed it was a personal decision, driven by a desire to distance herself from the company's polarizing brand. Others felt it was part of a broader strategy to pursue opportunities outside the conservative media bubble. Whatever the case, Cooper's departure marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. And now, as rumors swirl about her potential casting as Snow White, the question remains, is this a new beginning for her career, or just another round of media drama?
What happened to Brett Cooper's Snow White? After the insane backlash against Disney's Snow White remake, Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire announced they were making a story-accurate Snow White movie, starring one of their top commenters, Brett Cooper. But we're a month away from Disney's Snow White, and Brett's is nowhere to be seen, probably because Brett Cooper kinda left the Daily Wire, and rumors are the movie wasn't even filmed yet. And if you look at Daily Wire's movies as a whole, you can kinda tell they never cared about making it in the first place. The goal for the Daily Wire's movies from the beginning was to be the opposite of Disney. They wanted to make content that was entertaining instead of pushing a political agenda. At least that's what they said. It's not worked out that way at all. Aside from their well-received documentaries, which makes sense to be political, most of their films aren't made out of passion, they're made to make headlines. Disney fired Gina Carano? Let's get her for a movie. Trans athletes are a problem? Let's take that to the extreme. And their Mr. Bertram show was just conservative Velma. Its only goal was to make people mad, and it worked. And Snow White was the same. They didn't care about the movie itself, they just wanted the big headlines. This one being, we're doing what Disney won't. But that's the problem. Daily Wire's entertainment is the same as Disney's, just from the other side of the political aisle. Their projects are made to influence political ideas, which works for documentaries but not for entertainment. And with the way they've handled Brett's exit, they seem to care about their audience about as much as Disney does. So long story short, whatever your politics are, just focus on good storytelling instead of pushing your worldview, or you might just become exactly what you hate. But those are just my thoughts. Tell me yours in the comments.
The creative differences between Brett Cooper and the Daily Wire leadership are crucial to understanding why their collaboration fell apart. While Daily Wire executives were eager to inject the Snow White project with political subplots aimed at owning the libs, Cooper had a different vision for the film. She wanted a neutral, timeless fairy tale, something that could appeal to all audiences, not just one political group. The Daily Wire, however, saw the project as an opportunity to make a bold statement about the current cultural climate. The film was marketed as a conservative response to Disney's more progressive take on Snow White, with the goal of drawing attention to what they saw as the dangers of the woke agenda. For Cooper, this wasn't what she signed up for. She had hopes of using Snow White as a platform to launch a mainstream acting career, free from the confines of political discourse. She envisioned a Snow White that could stand the test of time, rather than one that would be used as a tool for ideological warfare. When it became clear that the Daily Wire was intent on making the film a cultural statement, Cooper decided to walk away. The split was amicable on the surface, but the underlying tensions were clear. Cooper's departure marked the end of what could have been a major breakthrough for her career in conservative media, but it also opened up the door for new opportunities.
Yo, what actually happened to Brett Cooper's Snow White? The Daily Wire released a trailer casting Brett Cooper as Snow White in response of the backlash over Snow Brown, but there have not been any updates since. On IMDb, Brett Cooper still listed as the only actress for the movie, which is supposedly coming out this year. Brett Cooper actually left the Daily Wire, which was supposed to produce the film. Before leaving, she reported they haven't recorded anything towards the movie. If the film was ever meant to be made is the real question.
As Brett Cooper parted ways with the Daily Wire, the fallout was swift and intense. Fans were divided over her departure, with some expressing their disappointment at the split, and others defending Cooper's decision to leave the company. The most noticeable impact was on the Snow White project, which had been marketed as a return to traditional values and was heavily associated with Cooper. When she left, the entire project seemed to lose its momentum. Social media exploded with reactions from fans, many of whom had supported Cooper's vision for the film. The backlash was felt not just in the conservative media sphere, but also in the mainstream entertainment world. Cooper had been positioned as the face of the Snow White project, and her exit left a noticeable void. The Daily Wire tried to push ahead with the project, but without Cooper, it was hard to maintain the same level of excitement and engagement. In the wake of Cooper's departure, the Snow White remake seemed to lose its identity. The film had been marketed as a conservative counterpoint to Disney's version, but without Cooper, it seemed to lack a clear direction. For many fans, this marked the end of a project that had promised to bring a fresh perspective to the classic fairy tale. And as the media backlash continued to grow, it became clear that Cooper's departure would have lasting consequences for the Snow White franchise, regardless of what direction the project eventually took.
Once upon a time,
Who is this? I like the beginning.
in time a prince would come. Once upon a time, but now that time
Brings me back to my childhood.
is gone.
No freaking way! No!
Yo!
Brett Cooper?
No way. Hold on.
Oh man, I got such a crush on
Okay.
Brett Cooper.
Isaac, so we're gonna preface this with Isaac loves Brett Cooper, and now she is engaged, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm so sad.
So,
I cried in my bed.
so Brett Cooper, if you were watching this, Isaac cried.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a lot of millions of men that cried.
Yeah.
But Isaac is one of them.
As Brett Cooper's Snow White project was scrapped, many wondered what the future held for the young actress. Her departure from the Daily Wire was a significant moment in her career, but it could also mark the beginning of a new chapter. For Cooper taking on the role of Snow White in Disney's revamped version could be a transformative opportunity. It would not only allow her to distance herself from the political controversies that have followed her, but also establish her as a serious actress in mainstream entertainment. The question, of course, is whether Disney will take the risk of casting her in such a high-profile role. If they do, it could represent a complete turnaround in her career, allowing her to transition from conservative media to the broader entertainment industry. However, this move also comes with risks. If Cooper is cast as Snow White, it could reignite the political firestorm that had been associated with her departure from the Daily Wire. Fans of Disney's more traditional approach to storytelling might embrace her casting, but progressive audiences could see it as yet another attempt to push conservative values in mainstream media. If Cooper does land the role, it would be a major career milestone, but one that comes with both opportunities and challenges. Whether she can navigate the waters of mainstream Hollywood remains to be seen.
Brett Cooper has announced her exit from the Daily Wire. There were rumors that her best friend or maid of honor in her wedding, which is true, obviously, Reagan Conrad would be taking over her show. The long conclusion of this is, as far as separations go, it appears to be as amicable as it can be. She made the announcement. It was quite sad. She did seem like she was upset in it. And then it kind of cut to Jeremy Boring, the CEO. He said nice things about her. Everyone's like, what will happen to Brett Cooper? Brett Cooper is going to be absolutely fine. I mean, beyond fine. Frankly, by the time I hit the ground, I must have had, and I am not kidding, 25 messages from people from all walks of my life asking me, can I have a contact with Brett Cooper? I'm talking about people that want to do her book, people that want to sign her for a show, people that want to sign her for speeches. Also, she's super young. She's got just a lot of gas left into the tank. She's going to be everywhere in 2025, so we just want to wish her a lot of luck.
As Disney shifts gears with its Snow White project, one thing is clear. The controversy surrounding Rachel Zegler's casting has forced the studio to reconsider its approach. While some fans are hoping for a return to traditional storytelling, others are questioning whether Disney's attempt to reboot the film will be successful. The studio's pivot, with Brett Cooper potentially stepping into the role, represents a significant shift in how Disney is navigating the cultural and political landscape. But with every casting decision comes risk, and the fallout from this controversy will likely linger for some time. Fans are left wondering, what version of Snow White will ultimately make it to theaters? And in the larger context, how will Hollywood approach casting in the future, especially when dealing with the complexities of social media, politics, and audience backlash? As this drama continues to unfold, one thing is certain: Disney's Snow White will be remembered not for what happened on screen, but for the storm that brewed behind the scenes.